What's up, guys? It's Rey-Jay back with another video. And in this one, I want to break down what's happening with SPY, Tesla, Nvda, the QQQ, and a couple of other tickers. I'm going to break down what's happening with the economic calendar moving forward as we have other factors out there, not to mention a very, very big catalyst that's coming out. But just know that I am not a financial planner, so take nothing I say as financial advice. And also, if you guys can, please check out my Moomoo link. If you deposit $100, you're guaranteed 5 free stocks. If you deposit $2,000, you're guaranteed 30 in total, not to mention 8.1% APY in invested cash. This offer ends at the end of March, so check it out before they run out. Anyways, now let's talk about what's happening with this market. So looking at SPY, as you guys can tell, there's a very, very interesting trend here. We saw us break out from this resistance, hitting the new all-time high. I give you guys a warning that SPY has a range between 604 and 608, which is where we saw lots of chop in the past. But this time around, SPY managed to actually break it because of another catalyst. So let's talk about why SPY broke this resistance and whether or not this means the market is going to continue to run. There's going to be another catalyst that's coming out too, so I'll break down all of that. So the first thing worth mentioning is this, okay? We have this news right over here about how the market's very, very flat, at least when it comes to individual tickers. Some tickers are flat, some are in the green, some are in the red, but overall there's more green than red, and I would say a little bit sideways price action here. On the other hand, we saw lots of ETFs and futures getting bought up very, very nicely because we started to see a lot more buyers who were defending. So why did the market pump? Well, we had Mr. Trump, President Trump, giving a speech today at the World Economic Forum. Just know that he talked about the US global affairs, how he thinks the economy is going to improve, and a bunch of other things like that. He also mentioned that he believes that interest rates should be lower, and he's going to basically pressure the Fed to lower interest rates. That is what helped the market push quite a bit. That's what the market is seeing a lot of upside right now. And we started to see the market break all-time highs. So the market liked what he was saying, but this doesn't guarantee anything for tomorrow or beyond because we have another catalyst that's coming out. Let's talk about what the main catalyst is, and then I'll break down more information. So just know that for tomorrow for the markets, we have the S&P Global Composite Manufacturing and Services PMI at 9:45 a.m. That could cause some volatility. That's going to be the factor for tomorrow at least. And besides that, there's nothing else for tomorrow. But for today, we have another catalyst that's coming out in the night. That could cause the market to make a big move tomorrow. And that's going to be this news right here. So we just got the inflationary numbers from Japan, and we're seeing inflation year over year at 3.6%. That is above expectations. We also saw core inflation year over year at 3%. That is technically aligned on the higher end of expectations. And then month over month inflation is at 0.6%. That is above expectations in Japan. So the Japanese inflation rate has been going up, and then that opens the doors for another potential interest rate hike that could be coming. Right now, guys, please know that as far as Japan is going at 10 p.m. Eastern Standard Time here in the US, we have the Bank of Japan making their interest rate hike decision. We're expecting them to increase their rates by 25 basis points. We'll see if that ends up being the case, or is it going to be 50 basis points? It all depends on different factors. So we'll see. We'll see if we end up getting that increase or not. Will the Bank of Japan call a top in the U.S. interest rates? We'll see about that as well. So with inflation going up, there's a very, very good chance that the Bank of Japan is going to increase their rates again. And by doing so, it may cause some changes, at least in the way the market is moving. There was a time back in August when they raised their rates, and that caused the market to dip, at least to some extent. That was one of the factors that caused the sell-off in the U.S. markets back in August. So we'll see if this affects us this time around or not. Will Japan raising rates cause the market to dump, or will the market continue to pump? That depends on different factors. The market knows this already. I wouldn't necessarily say it's like a surprise if they do give us some kind of rate hike, but so far it's not really facing the market. The market's still pushing, so it's not affecting us too much for now. For earnings, we have Verizon and American Express announcing earnings tomorrow. Besides that, there's nothing else. And then last but not least, we have this right here, where we have about over 300,000 calls expiring and a little bit over 1 million puts expiring, a 3.19 put to call ratio, at least for SPY for tomorrow. So we'll see if that leads to upside or not. Let me just make this very simple to understand. So as far as SPY goes from this point, so let's just focus on technicals. If we manage to continue to push and we manage to break past 610, we're bullish. We're going to be looking for a short squeeze, and we could be on our way for about 615 to 616 by next week if we continue to squeeze. If we break past 610, this continues tomorrow, okay? So watch and see if we could break 610. If we'd see the opposite, and if the Bank of Japan raising rates causes a rug pull, if SPY does not hold 608, Look at 605 as the main support right here. We got to hold 605. If we don't, we're going to easily dump to 603 to fill this gap. So there's going to be a move back down. So it's very simple. It's very, very simple. If we lose 608, look at 605. If that fails us, we're going to be dumping to 603 or below for a rug pull, for a temporary pullback. If we're bullish, we're looking for a break of 610 to push to 612.5, then 615. So will we break 610 and remain bullish, or do we lose 608 to 605 to turn more bearish? That depends on what kind of decision we get from the Bank of Japan and also what the reaction is for tomorrow. Technically speaking, SPY closed above the all-time high. It is looking bullish. We're making higher highs and higher lows, and there's lots of shorts expiring, so I do favor upside a little bit more. This does look like it wants to go a little bit higher before it turns back down, so it's favoring it wants to push higher, but we'll see just to be safe depending on what the Bank of Japan does. So we want to be very open-minded, so make sure you watch your levels just to be safe. I have given you guys lots of predictions on this channel. For example, I said that if SPY had broken 600, we're looking for the all-time high, and that's what happened. So I do make predictions, but in this case, I can't predict everything perfectly. I have to wait and see what the data tells us just to be safe. For the QQQ, we look bullish, at least technically speaking. If we break 533 tomorrow, we're looking for 535. If we lose 530, we're looking for a dump to 527, then 525. So will we break 533 and remain bullish to start breaking out towards the all-time high? Or is the QQQ about to get a rejection and lose 530? Could go either way. We'll see what happens with the Bank of Japan and also what the reaction is after we get more data. For now, technically speaking, it's a bit more bullish as we're trying to establish a higher low here. And we got a nice bounce, so it's favoring and wants to push higher. But we'll see just to be safe. For the Russell 2000, we have a nice bullish divergence double bottom. We're also holding support nicely, so it favors it wants to push up towards about 230 plus. As long as 230 breaks, we're looking for 232. If we're bearish and we end up losing support at this 230 area, 228 area, we could be tipping back down to fill this gap towards the 225s. So if we lose 228, look for 226.5, then 225 as our supports. Could go either way, but we're technically favoring upside a little bit more. This looks like we grab liquidity right here where this 200 EMA was, and we're trying to break out like this. So this looks bullish, but we'll see just to be safe depending on the Bank of Japan data and other factors like that. For ES, okay, we look bullish. There's no sign of rejection yet as of right now. It is favoring and wants to continue to push to about 6160 back up towards the all-time high into like the 6170s all the way up here. So that's the more bullish case. The bearish case is going to be us essentially losing 6120 to start dumping back down to about 6100 flat. So we'll see which way we end up going. We could go either way, so watch and see. But overall, I think we're doing a great job so far. I think that's ES is favoring upside right now. It looks like it wants to go higher, but we'll see depending on the Bank of Japan. If we lose 6120, we're looking for a dip to 61 hard, then 6080. And if we break past this resistance right here at 6150, I'm looking for essentially 6160 to 6170 near the all-time high. And we could be trying to surpass those. So we'll see about that. NQ is holding 22,000, so it's a good sign so far. If we're bullish tomorrow and we see a short squeeze, you want to see us hold above 22,000 to start pushing for 22,200, eventually towards the imbalance at 22,290. So the 22,200s are coming for bullish. If we're bearish, if we make a move to the downside, we could be dipping back down towards the 21,800 area. If that fills us, we could be dipping even lower, back down to where this gap fill happens to be. So for now, we're looking bullish to 22,200 as the most likely possibility. We'll see if we get a bounce or not, so watch that very, very closely. For Bitcoin, we're stuck in the middle right now, trading sideways in this range. We have support at 102,000. We have resistance at 107,000. We're going back and forth for now. Could go either way. We're nearing a bullish cross in the PPO, so this favors 107 plus thousand. So we'll see if we get a break or not. But for now, it's doing a good job at holding up, and it's just consolidating. Nvidia looks bullish. If we break 147, we're going up to 150. If we lose 144, we dump back down to 140. We're in a range right now, but we're technically favoring upside. This kind of looks like a cup and handle like structure. So not sure if the handle's like fully there, or if we're about to form it, or if we're already done with the move to the downside and we're just going to pump from here. But it looks bullish, guys. It looks bullish overall. It's favoring 150. We'll see what happens with the Bank of Japan, how that affects things if we end up losing 143. So watch that very closely as we look a bit more bullish. Tesla's looking a little bit lackluster as we're getting lots of negative news involving the EV mandate. There's a possible left shoulder here, a head and then a right shoulder that's been forming. In order for us to remain bullish, you want to see this thing essentially break past the 413 area to 415. If we break past these EMAs, it could start pushing for 420 again. If we can't do that, if we push and then reject, we're looking at 410 as the main support. If 410 fails us on Tesla, this is going to be at risk of dipping all the way down to this imbalance to the low 400s. So Tesla's looking a little bit weaker to me. It's just consolidating and showing some weakness relative to the markets. So it favors downside a little bit more. We'll see what happens with the Bank of Japan news, but just know there's still some weakness on Tesla nonetheless. For Apple, we're on a bit of a downtrend. We're making lower highs and lower lows so far. We need to try to get back above 227. Otherwise, we favor a push back down to about 220. I'm still seeing weakness on Apple. There's no sign of a true bounce quite yet. So just keep that in mind. Now we're just going to go over the rest of these. So on Netflix, I called that it might be dipping to about 937 to 940. Came a little bit short of that target before it started to bounce. It's looking bullish overall, making higher highs and higher lows, but 1,000 is going to be a tough resistance. We might revisit 1,000. We'll see if we break it or not. So technically speaking, it looks a bit more bullish. We'll see how the market affects this. For MSTR, we're doing a good job at holding up. We formed a very, very nice looking inverse head and shoulders like structures, the left shoulder, head, and then the right shoulder here. If we lose 362, we could be tipping back down lower. And as long as we hold this, we could try to bounce back up for 380. So with this inverse head and shoulders, we just have to try to hold above at least 373 to bounce back up into the 380s. If we don't hold this, we dip back down. So it's consolidating right here, but this is still looking bullish. The setup is still bullish with the inverse head and shoulders. So I hope we get that bounce for the 380 plus area. We'll see depending on the news that comes out with the Bank of Japan. So we'll give it some time. For Celsius, we're on a bit of a downtrend right here. We need to see if we could hold support at 25. If that fails us, we could be dipping all the way down towards the 24.5 area. If we break past essentially 25.5, we're going to be looking for a bounce. Celsius is looking weak as we're getting a big rejection right here. We're making lower highs. So this could continue to fall. So give this some time to develop. I'm still seeing weakness on the share price. So please keep that in mind. So this is favoring downside a little bit more. Will the Bank of Japan affect this? We'll see, but it still looks a bit more bearish. For Supermicro, we pumped very nice. So we're just consolidating right now. It might come down to about 32.6, and we'll see if we bounce off that or not. We still have a very nice looking double bottom like structure, but there is going to be that risk of this dipping a little bit lower towards this support. So I wouldn't be surprised if we come back down towards 32.68, and then we'll see if buyers return, try to get this to bounce or not. So give that some time. For Palantir, we look a bit more bullish right now as we're making higher highs and higher lows. So we'll see if things continue from here, especially as time goes on. If we were to lose essentially the 77 area, we're looking for a dip back down towards 75. And for bullish, you want to see this break past 80. I think right now we're favoring a push to 80. It still looks very strong. There's no sign of rejection yet, so give this some time to develop as buyers are continuing to step in. On Rivian, we've been making lower highs here. There's a giant head and shoulders like structure. I am seeing buyers trying to defend it at 12.5. If we could hold 12.5 tomorrow, look for a bounce for 12.8, then eventually back up to 13. If we don't hold 12.5, there's going to be a rejection back down to the low 12s. I'm hoping we get a bounce back up above the 12.5 to see some upside. So we'll see if that ends up being the case, but I favor upside a little bit more. For so far, we're looking bullish. If we end up losing, around this 17.5 area, we could be dipping back down towards 17 flat or below. And if SoFi is bullish, you want to see it break past resistance at 18.2. If we break that, I think we easily push for 18.5 to 19. Overall, technically, it's looking bullish. We're making higher highs and higher lows and bouncing. So we're favoring the 18.5 plus area as we look bullish. AMD is doing a good job at holding up. It might dip a little bit and try to retest 122. We'll see if we get a bounce off that. But look for a small pullback on AMD. It depends if we can hold 122 or not. If we hold this, we should bounce back up to 125. If we don't hold this, I'm going to be looking for a dip back down towards 120. So watch these levels very closely, at least as time goes on. For ARM, we're looking a little bit weaker here. We could be dipping towards 160.8 and then 151. We might be dipping towards this support right here. We'll see if we get some kind of bounce off this or not. So watch to see what kind of reaction we get. But I'll be watching for a test of 160.8 and we'll see what kind of reaction comes. There's going to be a small pullback coming, so please keep that in mind, guys, especially after the news that came out yesterday about funding and such. So keep that in mind. For coin, we have a nice double bottom structure. If we break past the 300 area of resistance, we're looking for a push towards 305. If we end up losing support at 288, we're looking for a dip back down towards 280. Technically speaking, it looks a bit more bullish, but we have to break 300 just for confirmation. It's a very volatile stock, so premiums are very expensive, so always keep that in mind. If 300 breaks, we're looking for a bigger push here, so it looks a bit more bullish to me. Amazon looks a little bit more bullish. We dipped towards 232 and then we bounced very nicely, reclaiming 235. So if we continue this push, we're looking for 238 as our potential target. If we end up rejecting off 235, watch 233. If that fills us, we dip back down. I'm favoring a nice bounce and some upside is the most likely possibility. So we'll see just to be safe. So make sure you watch your levels very closely and just know that it depends on the news coming out for tomorrow. But we do look a little bit bullish, technically speaking. Meta looks more bullish from the nice cup here. We also have a nice double. This is like a triple bottom here. We're trying to uptrend. If we could try to hold above 635, we're looking for an attempt for 640 plus. If we end up losing 635, we could be dipping back down towards the 620s. I think we're favoring 640 plus and even higher levels. So watch to see if Meta continues this uptrend and it tries to break out. So give this the time it needs as it looks a bit more bullish. For Microsoft, if we break 448, we're looking for an attempt to push up for 450. If we end up losing 444, we're looking for a dump back down towards 440. I think the 4 hours looking a bit more bullish. If we break 448, we're looking for an attempt to get into the 450. So I think it looks a little bit more bullish from here. Whether or not we get that break may depend on some news, but for now, we do look quite good. On Google, unfortunately for Google, okay, even though this thing has been holding up quite well, it hasn't been able to break past 202. That's the big problem with it. If we break 202, we're looking for a much larger push. And if we can't do that, then we're going to be looking for a move back down. So just know that if we end up losing 198.5, we dip back down to 196. If we break 200, we're looking for 202 again. We're just in a range right now. I need to see us hold 198 tomorrow for this thing to bounce. If we don't get that, this PPO crossover right here may cause us to kind of like rebound and dip a little bit. So I see a risk of some downside if we can't hold above 200 again tomorrow. So please keep that in mind. There's a little bit of weakness. For GameStop, we look a bit more bullish. If we could break past 28.5, we're looking for an attempt to get back up to 29.07. AMC is on a bit of a downtrend right here. We have to see if we can reclaim 3.48. If not, we could be dipping lower towards 3.29. DJT has been rejecting. It retested its 200 EMA to just reject afterwards, so 32.5 looks like a potential target. The VIX is very indecisive. We're going to be watching to see if we get a big bounce tomorrow if the market gets like a rug pull or if it gets a big rejection. It's completely stuck right now. We're waiting to see what this is going to do. I do want to mention there are gaps down here to fill. There's another gap down here in like the 13s, another gap down here in the 13.08 area. So if this continues to downtrend, it's going to continue to fall if 15 fails us, and that could be favoring that there might be more upside in the markets causing that. So we'll see just to be safe. The 10-year looks a bit more bullish on the 4 hours. This could be looking for an attempt to get back up to 4.68. If we lose support, though, we could be tipping to 4.6, so it could go either way. There is a head and shoulders on the 10-year treasury yield, so this may be favoring downside for this. And that technically would be bullish for the markets. But we'll see, though. It depends on the FOMC meeting, which is just less than 1 week away from now. So we'll see about that. The dollar is also dipping up a little bit, showing some weakness. It's barely holding support at 108.05. If we lose that, there's going to be a risk of this dipping even lower. And if this holds, we could try to bounce. So be careful, guys. We'll be watching these supports just to be safe. But with that being said, I just want to say that the market is doing a good job so far at holding up. Technically, it does look bullish, okay, but technicals are not everything when you have some pieces of news like this coming out. So at 10 p.m. tonight, that's Eastern Standard Time, we have the Bank of Japan making a very important announcement. Whatever they say is going to cause some volatility. Will it cause the market to get a rug pull, or will shorts just get squeezed? It all depends. So the best thing to do is just watch your levels and be very patient. Be unbiased going into tomorrow. So don't just say, oh, the market's going to squeeze or the market's going to crash. No, we wait and see and let the price action do the talking. Let the price action dictate what's going to happen. So I hope that's as clear as possible, guys. I thank you all so much for listening. Have a good rest of your day. I'll be back tomorrow morning before the stock market opens to give you guys another update. Until then, I just wish the best for everyone. I thank you all so much for your time and attention. Thank you for listening. Have a good rest of your day and peace out.